Yeah, changed. According to the cloud. Done. All right. For the recording, welcome back. We are ACI Course 2, Class 7 on October 1st, 2023. Let's gather our minds here as we usually do. Please bring your attention to your breath until you hear from me again. Now bring to mind that being who for you is a manifestation of ultimate love, ultimate compassion, ultimate wisdom. And see them there with you. They're gazing at you with their unconditional love for you. Smiling at you with their holy great compassion. Their wisdom radiates from them. That beautiful golden glow encompassing you in its light. And then we hear them say, bring to mind someone you know who's hurting in some way. Think about how much you would like to be able to help them. And how the worldly ways we try fall short. How wonderful it would be if we could also help them in some deep and ultimate way, a way through which they would go on to stop their distress forever. We're learning that maybe this is possible. And that hope that it is lights up. We turn that hope to that precious holy being before us. We believe that they know what we need to know, what we need to learn, what we need to do to become one who can help this other in this deep and ultimate way. And so we ask them, please teach us that. And they are so happy that we've asked. Of course, they agree. our gratitude arises. We want to offer them something exquisite. And so we think of the perfect world they are teaching us how to create. We imagine we can hold it in our hands, and we offer it to them, following it with our promise to practice what they teach us, using our refuge prayer. Here is the great earth, filled with fragrant incense and covered with a blanket of flowers. The great mountain, 4 lands, wearing the jewel of the sun and the moon. In my mind, I make them the paradise of a Buddha and offer it all to you. By this deed, may every living being experience the pure world. Idam Guru Ratna Mandala Kam Niryatayami. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest. May I reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest. May we reach Buddhahood for the sake of every living being. I go for refuge until I am enlightened to the Buddha, the Dharma, and the highest community, through the merit that I do in sharing this class and the rest. May all beings reach their total awakening for the benefit of every other. So in class 7, we learn Madhyamaka Svatantrika's explanation of nirvana and the difference between nirvana with something left over and nirvana without something left over. What is that difference? Joanna, please.
It refers to the impure heaps that are left over. So if we reach nirvana in this life, in this body, we still have seeds for the impure heaps, so the body, feeling, other factors that make us up. Consciousness. And I forgot the 5th.
Yeah, form, feeling, discriminating between things, all the other things that make us up, and all the different consciousnesses.
So, but as soon as we have left this life, those seeds will be gone as well, and then we don't have the leftovers, but the mind still has this, or the mind stream still has the nirvana state. So
right, because the seeds for suffering are all gone, and they're still all gone once the physical body for the life in which they reached that mental state is gone. Good. Then what does it mean for the nirvana which does not stay? Nirvana does not stay in either the edge of peace or the edge of suffering. What does that mean? Lisa.
I think it's Buddhahood.
Yeah, Buddhahood. So Buddhas have the state of mind of nirvana, that cessation of all mental afflictions because of their individual analysis, etc. And they still have that once they're Buddha. But Buddhahood is more than that. Great. Then there were 3 main parts of the method for achieving nirvana. I'll go through them so that we can get to class. We train in the wisdom realizing emptiness by first gaining strong intellectual understanding and then going on to perceive it directly. And part 2 is that we're working on number 1, part 1, under the influence of finely tuned morality and concentration. So it's not like we do number 1 first and then number 2. Okay. These aren't what we do in order. We're keeping our vows and we're meditating regularly, so that our mindfulness of our behavior off our cushion gets stronger and stronger. Third, after 1 and 2 have brought us to our path of seeing, then we habituate to living according to what we now know. So we're using our skill of our powerful morality with our powerful mindfulness on and off the cushion to live according to what we now know is true about the no self nature of self and other and everything that happens to us. Because we still perceive things in the same old way, but because of what we now know, we are more swift to choose our behaviors based on our morality born of wisdom, that are able to do it. And so our path of habituation is the path of purify ignorance and gather goodness. So in our growing intellectual understanding, that's bringing us to greater and greater wisdom, to begin that, we need to start with understanding the gotcha, understanding the self-existent thing that we think is there. And when we use the term self-existent, the literal words would mean to exist independent of any other factor. And that seems like a ridiculous concept, doesn't it? We all know that everything depends on something else, including my me. So we need to fine-tune what we automatically think we mean when we use the term self-existent. And then when we're using that term, like out in a public arena, we would want to actually probably not use that term, because they would hear it. She thinks things exist independent of any other factor. That everybody knows that's not true. I'm not interested in what she has to say. And yet, as we are growing our understanding of what we mean by that, it's a very concise way of saying a whole lot, which I think is why in our tradition we keep using it. So give yourself the time to keep adding to what you mean when you use the term a self-existent thing. What we mean by self-existent thing depends on our level of understanding of what it means for something to exist in dependence upon something else. And some of us have already studied that 6 flavors of emptiness. And so we already understand how that shifts from school to school, as if there's a group of people over there in Alabama that believe this way, and a group of people in LA that believe that way. But it's not like that. It's our own thinking as we interact with our day. We'll swing between not even first school all the way up to maybe glimpses of nothing can be coming from itself. And we're going to learn more and more clearly that ultimately what we mean, or highest school, what we mean by a self-existent thing, means anything that could exist independent of the experiencer's mental seeds ripening results of past behavior. That's really what we mean by a self-existent thing. And all the nuances to get there are baby steps for coming to understand that. So we have this term, the gacha. Oh. Wait just a minute. I need to open my, oh no. I have it open. But for a minute I didn't. There we go. Here is our vocabulary for this class. Gacha. We've heard it, so many times. And they describe it, gak means to deny or to refute. And ja means the object. So the object to be refuted. We call the gakcha, the object we deny, which still doesn't make sense to me. The gakcha is what we believe is there existing from it in it. And the reason they call it what we deny is because we're going to go looking for that. And theoretically, no matter where we look, we're going to come up short. It's not going to be there. What we're looking for won't be anywhere we go looking for it. And so they call it the object which we deny. Like those words sound to me, it's just like deny it flat out and you're done. You don't have to go investigating. Everything's a gakcha, just forget it. But that's not what they mean. They mean we need to go looking for it to actually experience the fact that what we thought was there is not there. And not only not there, totally impossible. Which when we reach that conclusion, totally impossible, do you have to go looking for it anymore? Do you have to look in your closet to see if there's any full-size two-headed purple elephant in your room? No. There's no such thing. I don't have to go looking. And that's true about these things, the gakchas. But we need to go looking first. Which in order to go looking for the gakcha, we need to know what it would look like. So if there was somebody who had no idea what a full-size two-headed purple elephant would look like, and I asked them, is there one in your room? They go, I don't know. Is there? Because they don't know what to look for. The gakcha, that's the position we're in with the gakcha. So we actually have to go looking for it first. And to do that, we need to figure out what it would be like so that we can go see if there is such a thing. And when we finally exhaust ourselves in looking for it, we come to the conclusion oh, the gotcha is the thing we deny. But it's just that just doesn't feel like it's complete, those words to me. It is for the lineage. So gotcha, that which we deny. So in the example of the purple-headed elephant, two-headed elephant, we can say, yeah, the purple-headed two-headed, you know what I mean, is the gotcha, is the thing that we're denying. But when we're talking about growing our intellectual understanding of emptiness, the gotcha that we're looking for is more specific. The gotcha in that arena is what emptiness is empty of. So again, a phrase that Geshe-la uses over and over and over again, that I still like, why do you say it like that? I can think of a bunch of ways of saying that that's more clear. But I think there's a reason. The gotcha is what emptiness is empty of. So even at that level, in order to know what we're looking for, what emptiness is empty of, we have to clearly be able to recognize what isn't there in emptiness. Because it's not just nothing. We're not looking for just nothing. So if we don't know what emptiness is empty of, we can't very well study emptiness, let alone come to perceive it directly. Bless you. And further, if we have the wrong idea of what it is, we'll be wasting our time in our study and meditations, going in the wrong direction. So scripture tells us, if you don't know what a water pitcher is, you cannot prove that there is not one on the table. You can't recognize whether or not there is one on the table if you don't know what one is. So if we don't understand what exists, we can't refute its emptiness. So we need to have a good idea of how we think things exist in order to check to see if that's correct or not. So we need to investigate what it means to be a self-existent thing, to be a thing which exists independently out there, all by itself, without depending on any other factor. Now, I already said, we don't believe things exist independent of any other factor. But what about those other adjectives? Something that exists independently. Meaning, you know, David's tricycle, it's outside my window. It's standing there on its own. It's a thing that's there, independent. It's an existing thing, it's there. I know it has parts, we had to buy it. I know. But there it is, an existing thing that has a name, that has a function, that's sitting there waiting for somebody to get on it and write it very patiently. So there is a part of us that believes things exist independently. We just don't mean totally independently. Kind of independently. But it's enough then to blame that independent thing for anything that goes wrong and technically anything that goes right. If David goes out to ride the bike and it's got a flat tire and he gets upset at the flat tire, he's not going, you darn bike, you've got a flat tire. But his mind says, oh, that bike has a flat tire. He's blaming the bicycle for the flat tire. Or, maybe he doesn't, but I would. As opposed to a wisdom being is, oh, seeds ripening, flat tire happening now, right? We're going to talk about it more. So we have a tendency, because we already know the punchline, to jump there too quickly. And we want to go through this gacha, bless you too, slowly enough that we can catch our mind in how we believe things exist in some way without our projection of them. Because we do believe that. And it will take us eventually through those 6 different schools. Master Shanti Deva says, until we can find what we think is there, we can never grasp how it cannot exist. So what would a self-existent thing look like? What would it be like? And it seems like it's just semantics, but that means we're not really understanding the significance of this discussion yet. And that's okay. We're planting seeds. Geshe-la said in the monastery, they don't actually get to this subject matter until they're in their 12th year or so. And then before they start this, they're told to take a 6 or 8 or 9 month break and go do some powerful virtue to prepare themselves to get these teachings on the gacha and emptiness from these higher 2 schools. And what they typically mean by go do some high virtue is to go do a meditation retreat. And they're given practices to do, to gather this virtue, to be able to understand these teachings that they're going to get when they come back. So even though we've heard the pen thing, bazillion times, when I hold this object up and ask you what it is our gut reaction still, it's a pen and it's telling me that it's a pen? Right, mine too. And that gives us a hint as to what the self-existent thing is that we're looking for, that we're going to deny. Right? It's really so simple to deny it. Does the dog have that gut instinct? Pen. No, they have some other gut instinct for this thing. It looks to me like they chomp on my pen. But if it was a pen, from it, in it, the way my gut instinct says, could a dog do anything but use it in the same way I do? Because if that identity and function and everything is in the pen telling us about it, it's not relying on the mind of the perceiver. It's relying on itself. And that means the dog would pick it up in its little paw and write with it. Or it would mean the human would salivate and chew on it. If it was in it, from it, the way our gut makes us believe, from inborn seeds, we know. So what would a truly self-existent thing be like? Something whose identity and function is in it, from it, independent of the perception of it by who's ever perceiving it. What's the ramifications of that? First, it would appear and be experienced the same way by any and every sentient being, wouldn't it? Which means no factor of the perceiver's mind would have any effect on it. Secondly, it would have to function in the same way for any and every being who perceived it, because its function is determined by it and not by the perceiver of it. My own mind is saying, yes, well, every human is going to use this in the same way. It's just that they're a dog or a fly, and every fly sees it the same way. But is that true? No. A human baby is more likely to do this with it than to write with it. And then when they finally do write with it, they write on the wall, not the paper. They're using it in the wrong way. So then lastly, if it were something whose identity and function were in it, unaffected by any being who interacted with it, could the thing ever change? No. And we say, yeah, but to function is to change. And if it's functioning on its own, then it's making itself change. Well, what makes that happen? Right? Something that exists totally independent of anything else. It can't change. It can't even make itself change. Because something has to change it to make it change itself. But still, like all of those three pieces are pretty self-evident if we just think about it. But then still, when we look out anything, ourselves included, still our automatic thought and reaction is in it, identity in it, function, change in it, from it. Part of us knows that's impossible. The other part of us completely overrides that, because our seeds force us to see things that way and believe that they are that way, even when our rational judgment says that's ridiculous, because it's inconsistent with experience. But the rational, inconsistent with experience seeds are too few and too puny yet to override the automatic in it from it seeds that we've been planting since forever. So when we think about it, it's easy to recognize the mistake that we're making. But if we don't intentionally make ourselves think about it, it's really unlikely that it will occur to us to do so. Because it's threatening to our familiarity. And so it's threatening to our safety, and it's threatening to everything we thought we knew. And it means we're admitting that we've been wrong since forever. And for some reason, that's one of the hardest things to do as a human, is to admit we're wrong, even just to ourselves. So a self-existent thing, it can't exist, can it? It's impossible. The scripture says, if it did exist, it would have to exist in a way opposite to the way things conventionally exist. Again, these weird combinations of words that are strung together intentionally to get us to think about them. If a self-existent thing did exist, it would have to exist in a way completely opposite to the way things conventionally exist. Meaning, we couldn't experience things in the way we do if things existed self-existently. We could not pick up this pen and write with it, or pick it up and use it to demonstrate dependent origination and emptiness, or use it to tie my long hair up in a bun. And yet we can use it for all these different things. And if it were a self-existent thing, right, we wouldn't be able to do that. It's like the opposite of what we experience. So it's not just that the gaksha isn't there. It's that there's no such thing. So it couldn't be there, and it never has been there, and it never will be there. So again, why are we bothering to look for it? Our belief that it is there is so strong that we have to go to the effort of looking for it to be able to show ourselves it's impossible. At some point, of course, we get to stop agonizing over that. But until we get to that point where it's becoming so instant, so clear that the thing I'm blaming for making me upset is impossible, and my upset goes away at that instant, until I'm there, I need to keep intentionally bringing up, I'm blaming a gaksha, a thing I believe in that's non-existent. I'm blaming Santa Claus for hurting my feelings. So it's not that gakchas exist deceptively. It's that they don't exist at all. They are the thing that we deny as existing at all. And we have to go about denying it because we believe in them so strongly, we blame them for everything. All of our negative emotions and negative judgments are focused on gakchas, things that we believe have their identities and qualities in them, but aren't there. That angry yelling boss isn't there. The one that's in them from them. It does not mean that there's no angry yelling boss at all. But the one that I can blame for the unpleasant that I'm experiencing, that one isn't there. So things have these two forms of existence. One is their ultimate existence, and the other is their dependent existence, which we also call their deceptive existence. And by that we mean the reality that a non-nirvana, non-Buddha perceives. The Svatantrika school has this way of explaining how things exist in order for us to help us wrap our mind around this understanding of things appearing to have their natures in them when they really don't, but not meaning that things don't exist at all. So here I wrote for you the Madhyamaka Svatantrika school. This is the Sanskrit term. And in those 6 flavors, Geshe-la's short terminology for it is the 50-50 school. So at this level of understanding, we've already come to see that, oh, everything exists dependent upon its causes, and so it's going to change, is true, but a very limited understanding of dependent origination that's helpful but incomplete. And then we expand that to say, well, every existing thing exists in dependence upon its parts. And that's a more inclusive set of things. But that still isn't sufficient to help us stop suffering, either our own, let alone others. And then we reached mind-only school that says, right, functioning things, they have some nature of their own. But the experiencer of them only experiences those objects through their own lens of their ripening seeds. So functioning things are out there. But we can't ever really say exactly what they're like and what they do, because we can only experience them through our own unique seeds ripening. And everything exists in that way, and nothing exists in any other way than that. And so see, our behavior is what makes the way we color those self-powered things that function. So it's a strong level of understanding to help us choose our behaviors more conducive with stopping perpetuating samsara and bringing ourselves to the wisdom that can help all beings. And then when we dig into that and try to figure out, well, like what part does that other powered thing bring to the party? Because my perception of something has to land on something that's conducive for that kuntak. Or I could put out my kuntak, into outer space and make those changing things, and that doesn't work. I can't just imagine a milkshake and pick it up and drink it. There's some interaction going on here. And as we try to find that, we might say, look, let's explain it in this other way. There's an existing thing that has its, like, not its whole quality in it from it, but like has a essence to it. Our friend, the Shen Wang, has penness. It's not enough to make it pen from its own side, but it's something that suggests pen, so that my arising mental seed, mind only would call it kuntak, can land on this thing, and it can be a pen that works for me. 50-50 school. Highest middle way, of course, is saying all along, nothing has any nature of its own. Everything is projections and nothing but. And admittedly, my mind hears that and automatically thinks, jumps to the conclusion, well, nothing's real then. Because just a projection makes it sound like, the laser light show, in the mist, in the sky, you've got the whole story unfolding. But when you stop the projector, the mist goes away, you don't see anything. And that's not correct either, that nothing really exists and we all just make it up as we go along. So it's useful to stop at each of these different levels, as we'll do through the course of our study, and check out, how does this help me choose my responses to situations in a more ethical way? Any level we find where, oh, this is the one that helps me, great. And maybe it's the beginning level. Everything comes from causes. Those causes will wear out. This too shall pass. So I don't need to get angry. I don't need to manipulate things like I used to think I needed to do. All of them are useful. So we're studying the gaksha, that thing that we deny, in order to be able to understand that emptiness of our experience of that object. Emptiness is the absence of the gaksha. So the gaksha is something that exists independent of any other factor, and at the highest level, independent of being the projected results of past behaviors. Which means then anything that does exist for us is ripening results of past behaviors, because there's nothing that cannot be that. Gachas don't exist. So the gacha is not opposite of deceptive reality, because a gacha has no reality at all. But we think it does. So Madhyamaka Svatantrika school describes how things exist so that when we come to the conclusion, all these gaksha, things that I thought made up me and my world, there's no such thing. We need to land on something, because otherwise we end up in that no man's land of, well, then nothing exists at all. And that's wrong worldview. So, lo nume la nangwe wangi shaksam. It's kind of fun to say. Lo nume la nangwe wangi shaksam. This is describing how things do exist. The gaksha is how things don't exist, but we think that they do. And this is how things do exist. Lo nume, lo means mind. Lo nume means a mind that's not hurt. Nume means not hurt. Here they mean a mind that's not hurt by being on some kind of drug or drink that has us intoxicated, or not hurt by some illness that has our sensory apparatuses not working right, or not hurt by some mental affliction that's so strong it's coloring our judgment, and not hurt by some like physical trick of the eye that happens sometimes. It means an unimpaired state of mind. La nangwe wangi means appears by the power. Nangwe means appears. So what is appearing that we're talking about is the thing we're trying to establish as existing. How is it that it does exist? We've established that it does not exist in it from it, but by establishing it, that it does not disappear. So there must be some way in which it does exist, because there it is. So the shaksam means, shak means established as existing, and sam means just or only. So the whole phrase says things exist just by appearing to an unimpaired mind. That is refreshingly simple, is it not? Things exist by the power of appearing to an unimpaired mind. It seems to say, as long as my mind is unimpaired, anything I see, hear, smell, taste, touch, or think of exists just by way of that. We learn later that the definition of an existing thing, even from earlier schools, is that which is perceived by a valid perception. Same idea here. To validly perceive things makes that thing exist. But to be accurate, wouldn't we have to say, in the way it does for me? But then we might be thinking, oh, well then, everything in my world is unique to me. That makes me really special. And so I'm the only one that matters. And it could make us nastier instead of kinder if we're misunderstanding the ramification of that. In this definition of, or this explanation of existing things, it's pointing out that two parts are necessary. For something to exist, we have to add to exist deceptively, meaning to exist in the world of beings whose minds are deceived. An existing thing requires these two parts. One, there must be a thing out there. There has to be something appearing to us. And number two, there has to be someone perceiving that thing with an unimpaired state of mind. And when we have those two factors present, we can say that that thing that we are perceiving is there. Now, when we are perceiving it with a deceived mind, included in that scenario is our belief in the thing's identity in it. And so we establish something as existing deceptively, and then we go looking for the deceived part. It's not in it, it's in us, as we will come to see. So it takes these two parts, something to be seen and someone seeing it, something to be experienced and someone experiencing it, for that thing to be what's experienced. That makes sense, doesn't it? But still, if you think of your grocery store or flower shop right now, aren't there flowers? The stores are closed maybe, but regardless, aren't there flowers there waiting for somebody to come and purchase them? Is this saying that those flowers are not there in the flower shop until you walk in? And then all of a sudden, flowers there, me to see them, I see the flowers, I see them, poof. Is that what our world is really like? And we're just perceiving it as if it's all out there waiting for us? I'm not saying yes or no, but recognizing that we do believe that all of those things that intellectually we know they depend on other factors, still when we think of them, those flowers are there waiting for somebody to see them. And anybody who sees them we'll see that there's 3 vases of mums and 2 lilies, and everybody will see them the same way as me when I get there. But does anybody see them the same way as me when I get there? No, they can't. Everybody sees them unique to them, which hopefully is not disorienting. It's rather empowering. Well, hopefully we'll get there. Yes, Lisa.
No, it's okay.
Okay. So a gaksha for this school would be anything which appears without both those factors present. Without something there and someone there perceiving it in the way that they do. So those flowers that I'm thinking are at the grocery store now, existing there even though nobody's there to see them, that's the gaksha. Does that mean there's no flowers? No, there are. But they can't be established as being there until somebody is perceiving them as there. Okay. Ignorance believes that things have their own identities, qualities, existences in them, from them. And at the same time, we hold, yeah, and they have their causes and they have their parts. And that's all consistent with them coming from themselves, because that's how things are different. They have different parts from themselves. It's really irrational when we stop to think of it. And so things can't exist in that way, but they can't not exist at all because we experience things all day long. So this school says, let's see if we can reach an understanding of what it would be like to be able to understand, as we're perceiving something, that these 2 factors are happening together to make our experience, and that either the subject or the object can't have their own identities, that the 2 are banging up together the way we think they do. And they say, let's use the example of the magic show to explain what we're getting at. So again, we've heard these things, I believe, probably more than once, but try to let yourself pretend that you haven't heard it before so that you can hear it a little bit differently. So the story is, in India, there were magicians, and they would gather a crowd, and using showmanship, they would take a stick off the ground and they'd hold it up in front of everybody. They'd cast a spell over the stick and everyone, and then they'd throw the stick on the ground, and because of the spell, there's a horse there, or an elephant, or whatever their spell does. And the crowd perceives a horse there, maybe a scary stallion, and they all back up. Maybe a cute little pony, and they all go, oh, cute pony. They react to this pony that's there, this horse that's there, because their unaware that they're under the magic spell. So they see a horse there. They believe the horse is there. And they react according to whether they like it or dislike it. The magician is also under the spell, but she knows it. So she's forced to see the horse there. But because she knows she's under the spell, she knows that she's looking at a stick, but she can't see the stick. She can only see the horse. So she sees the horse, but she doesn't believe it. Then along comes somebody who wasn't there when the magician did the spell. They just see a crowd and they walk up to see what's going on. And they hear the crowd going, wow, look at that horse. It's so beautiful. It must be really valuable and important. And they're going, what horse? They don't see a horse. They don't believe in a horse. You know, you'd have to say they see a stick to stay with the analogy. And so the school says, you know, who do you think these different beings represent in terms of our study of the gaksha, what it is and what it isn't? And so then what deceptive reality is and isn't, and what ultimate reality is and isn't. So the people who see the horse and believe the horse is there are like ordinary ignorant beings who are perceiving everything in their world, including themselves, as there, really, in the way that we're perceiving it. It's like we're all under the spell of our ignorance, and we don't know it. We might say, well, why does there have to be a stick there? And if it weren't necessary for the stick to be there appearing as the horse, then the spell given for the minds to see horse, they would see horse anywhere they looked. But they don't. They only see horse where the magician put the stick. It takes those two aspects. The thing that's there appearing as something, and the mind of the beings seeing it as the thing that they see. So the thing that's there appearing as something, that I said that wrong. The thing that's there, that's available to be perceived as something, is something there. And then the perception of the ones experiencing it fill in its details. If we're under the spell, the details are horse, and I believe horse is there. Yelling boss, and I believe yelling boss is there, yelling at me for nothing I did wrong. Then the magician sees the horse but doesn't believe the horse is there, knows it's a spell cast on him and the stick, her and the stick, that makes her see the horse where really, not meaning truly, but in the example, a stick is. So this person is analogous to someone who has seen emptiness directly, but is now out of that experience. They have had the direct experience that things exist by way of seeds ripening, and they have no nature other than that. And so in this analogy, the seeing the horse but not believing it is their state of mind out of their emptiness directly, in which they are forced to perceive things as having their natures in them again because of their seeds, but they don't believe it because they've experienced directly that that's impossible. But they can't force themselves to see the emptiness of those appearing things. None of us can force ourselves to do that. Buddhas don't force themselves to do that. So to see the horse but not believe it, but not be able to see the stick, is that Arya on their bhumis, 1 through 7. Because once they reach 8 and above, they are no longer perceiving things with their natures in them or themselves. They are now experiencing everything as their mental imprints ripening from their deeds. And they reach that by way of burning off all that ignorance on their path of habituation, reaching nirvana. And if they're on the bodhisattva track, they're on their way to Buddhahood. Then what about the newcomer who doesn't see a horse, doesn't believe there's a horse there? We might want to say, oh, that must be Buddha. But think about that a little bit further. A Buddha perceives appearing reality and emptiness simultaneously. So if that newcomer represents a Buddha, they would see the horse and the stick and not believe either one. But that's not what the example is given. The example is they don't see a horse, they don't believe it's there, implying they see the stick. They don't actually say that. But they don't see, they see both. So this newcomer represents a person who's in the direct perception of emptiness, which is weird because they can't walk along and see the ground and see the horse. So you have to work with the analogy here a little bit. Someone who's in the direct perception of emptiness only perceives reality in the way that it truly exists, whatever that means. So in our scenario, we're saying that the stick on the ground is analogous to the way things truly exist. And then a horse appearing there is analogous to our belief in self-existent things. And so for someone to come along who does not have the spell of ignorance, they're going to see a stick. What's everybody upset about? There's just a stick on the ground. So how does that help us understand the gakcha and the dependent arising that makes us fill in the details of our experience according to this school and recognize how things can't exist in any other way than that? That magic show, if you keep thinking about it, you can explain to yourself these different parts. What's there that we think is there that can't be there? Oh, the gakcha. Oh, here's the dependent originating part. And it's not dependently originating from the thing. It's dependently originating from the mind of the perceiver. But there has to be something there that the mind of the perceiver lands on. Because otherwise the mind of perceiver would just make up anything anywhere. And we don't. We can't. At least yet. And then reach that point of, oh, nothing exists in any other way than what's forced onto the mind of the perceiver. And then what makes that happen? Yes, Lisa. I forgot our break.
Why do we explain the gacha with this school and not with the highest school? Like
Because
what you
yeah.
explain with the gacha, or like we need this physical thing there in order for the mind to project or to perceive. So if I go to the highest school, then it makes me think of what you just say. Then I will have horse everywhere in the air, which is also why I never understand if I have seats for a teacher, then why specifically it has to be this person and it cannot be someone else. It will be the same, somehow for me, the same example.
Right. I mean, the answer to that is because there's an advantage for you for it to be one person. Doesn't have to be one.
Yeah, okay, it's just
But
a general example. Like if I have seats
right.
for health, why do I have to take this specific ibuprofen and not the acetaminophen? So if I take the ibuprofen, it goes away, but if I take the acetaminophen, it doesn't. So
right, and the very fact that we're asking that question means we don't understand emptiness and dependent origination, and that's why we have to go sequentially through the school, because otherwise we would not ask that question. It would be very clear why acetaminophen will take the pain away, but vitamin C will not. Right? And I don't mean that disrespectfully. We bump up against our belief in self-existence as we even think we're understanding it. And it happens for a long time. So the reason they seem to make us learn a lower school is that when we understand these schools enough to where we can actually catch ourselves in those beliefs, we'll actually see that, oh, I'm doing that. I'm doing what 50-50 school describes. We thought they were just teaching us about it, but actually they're letting us become aware of what we're already doing when we're approaching our world with some level of wisdom. So it'd be nice. Some people can jump straight to the highest school and they already recognize all these little nuances and have already gotten past them. For most of us, we learn about them all. And then at some point, we actually recognize, oh my gosh, I really have noticed that because I understand the changing nature, I'm not as reactive to things as I used to be. I'm actually functioning at first level school. And all my intellectual understanding of highest school, I'm nowhere close to behaving that way yet. And so we will start to recognize in future examples, as our mind reacts to the example, we'll find ourselves in this school saying, oh yeah, there has to be some penness here to receive my projection, and it'll make so much sense then. And then if we're functioning from that level, it's only a little tiny shift to where we don't need the penness anymore. And we won't fall into the mistake of, well, then I can just project pen anywhere. because we'll be so close to understanding how the arising and the emptiness are two sides of a coin. They arise together, not one then the other, but blink, blink, blink. We can imagine ourselves there, but when push comes to shove, you know, there's something in that nasty boss that's yelling at me again. So it's useful to actually work at these different levels, even when, you know, it's like, no, only the highest level works. The way we get to the highest level working is by working with the lower levels. Let's take our 20-minute late break. I will pause the recording.
Lama, one question.
Mm-hmm.
Is it like there is here where I live a Tibetan center, but it's from another lineage, from the Karma Kakyu lineage,
Yeah.
or I don't know, school, how to call it.
Yeah.
Is it wrong to go to some how to call it, event or meditation, or like I have the feeling I need some kind of contact to people who are in the same.
No. Yeah. No, I don't think it would be wrong at all. No, Geshe Michael is pretty, you know, stringent, Jetsun Kappa, and not at all. But the other lineages study Jetsun Kappa too, along with other things. And their emphasis is on different things. But they're all Buddhists, and they're all probably good Buddhists, and it would be beneficial.
Because
And
it's called the Diamond Way Buddhism,
yeah,
that center. So I
yeah,
was like, is the same Diamond Way that we are following? Is another
yeah. You know,
like I have this mixed feeling. I know like maybe I'm going to be there and judging because I know myself. Like,
right,
they are not understanding it right. But on the
right.
other hand, I have the feeling I need some kind of, like all the people I know in Dharma are away.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. I think if you could manage your mind with your comparing and go there for the camaraderie and the, you know, the commonness, I think that it would benefit you a lot.
okay, but the comparing, no chance to have it on in control.
Yeah. But catch yourself
Then,
and, you know, be open. Don't go there saying, I'm going to teach you what's right. You'll be able to hear what's right because you know. But go for the inspiration.
okay, thank you.
Yeah, it's okay. All right, I'm going to resume. So I'll summarize. The way things do exist deceptively is that it appears to me and I see it. But now, when we hear that, we tend to think, first it appears to me, and then I see it. And that's not what this is saying. Our deceptive reality is, it appears to me and I see it. It's arising at the same time. It makes a big difference when you walk into the grocery store and think the flowers are already there and then you see it. That's not what this is saying. So the way things do exist deceptively is it appears to me and I see it, meaning I experience it. The way it does not exist is out there on its own, waiting for me to perceive it. Yeah. Anything that could exist out there on its own is a gotcha. And there's no such thing. But this is the way we think everything does exist, as out there on its own. Emptiness is the fact that nothing exists out there on its own like that. It takes that process. So we're not negating that things are all around us. What we're negating is our belief that they are there, in them, from them, waiting for us to experience them. They are not like that. Out of habit, out of assumption, not consciously, we are holding that every existing thing, every experience, every moment of ourselves exists in the wrong way. In them, from them, waiting to be experienced. We are denying that anything could exist out there on its own, independent of someone perceiving it. So again, in the magic show, those two factors are, there needs to be a stick there appearing as the horse, and there needs to be the state of mind perceiving the horse. And together makes the crowd, the being in the crowd who sees the horse, see the horse and believe it. Then in the magic show, in order for our mind to see the horse, it had to be under the spell to see the horse. So in order to see our friend the pen as a self-existent pen, we're under the spell of our ignorance. Because that ignorance is the belief that everything is in it, from it. And this pen is part of everything. So it must exist in the way that I believe it does. In it, from it. Depending on its causes, depending on its parts. But its causes and its parts make it the pen that I see. We're leaving out the pen that I see coming from me, which technically isn't a part of the pen at all. All right. We did the correspondence. Let's do it with a different example. We'll do it with my friend, the bird cup. Is this bird cup, well, you can see how filthy it is inside. Not dirty, just stained. One of these days, I promise to clean it. Are we denying that there's a bird cup of tea that's all stained in my hand? No. Here it is. If you turn your head away, do you still believe I'm holding my bird cup in my hand? Yeah. And you confirm that by looking back. Look, there it is again. And can you catch in that belief that, what I'm doing here is in me, in it, from me, just waiting for you to either perceive it or not perceive it. That's the gotcha. It's that simple. So when I say, okay, the gotcha is impossible, does that make my teacup poof out of existence? No. Okay, so if I say to your mind, see this, me holding my teacup, and try to recognize that there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 people looking at me holding my teacup. Can you get a glimmer that your experience of me holding my teacup is unique to you, and that your mind is believing that everybody else is perceiving the same Sarahni holding the teacup? But now that you think about it, it's like, that's not possible. Everybody's a little different. If we were all here together, you'd be in these different locations in the room. So you'd be looking at it from a different angle. Nobody can ever be behind your eyes at the same time as you. Nobody can ever experience things in the same way you do. Does that make you feel okay? Then I'm the center of the universe. Or do we get this clue about how available everything is to be unique to my experience? And recognize then, whoa, what a responsibility that is, what an opportunity that is. Because although I can't choose how I'm going to perceive my experience, when we understand why we experience what we do, this little connection between unique to me, the cause is unique to me, the result is unique to me. How do I make causes for results unique to be that'll be great for everybody? Yeah, our conclusion is, wow, I can make anything. Just not by changing it in the moment. And we start there by recognizing how we think the things in it, we think everybody's seeing it the same way. And when we say, oh, that's ridiculous, and pull the gotcha away, now the things that are there, the way we perceive them, take on this whole different quality. Because now there's nothing in them to blame. There's just my seeds. And even in that perspective, like, so what? What seeds you made to make the angry yelling boss? What seeds do I do to make kind, sweet words boss? The angry yelling boss is burning off stuff. If I can come out with kind, sweet words to them and kind, sweet words to those other places I yell, then the coffee cup I hold someday will sing to me. Because our mind will make kind, sweet, beautiful sounds everywhere. This level is enough to get us started. So's mind only, enough to get us started. Because our conclusion is, my behavior is some kind of contributing factor here in what I'm experiencing. We reach that conclusion to have to start with finding the gotcha, the boss in them, from them. That's impossible. And then recognize the boss acting like that is coming from my perception of that boss. This school would say boss is there. You hearing them yell and being unpleasant, that's your part. And it's enough to change our behavior. It's just not quite enough to turn boss into Buddha. But it'll come. Yes, Lisa.
Sorry, Lama, I'm still puzzled with them. Things are not like we need the thing and we need the perceiver. That means the flowers in the store are not there.
No.
While I am not there.
No.
So then it makes me feel like it makes more sense to me at this level to think that the flowers are there while we are here.
Right.
And not that they are going to, because the experience, like if I call the owner and I ask him or her, are the flowers there? I have the feeling he's going to say, yes, they are here.
Right. Right.
How to fight that? Like, I really think they are there.
They
Like
are there.
I cannot follow what you're saying. No, because I am not perceiving them. They are not there.
The ones you're perceiving are not there. Because you're not perceiving any. If you think about them, you're perceiving the flowers in the store that you're thinking about. Does that make real flowers in the store?
No.
You can't confirm it, but you can't deny it either, can you? If there's somebody in the store.
But if it will be in this specific moment, let's say in this specific moment, I call the owner. So I am here, I am not perceiving the flowers, but I'm calling the owner and I ask him, are the flowers there?
Right.
And he or her is going to say, yes.
Yes. Yes.
So they are there, although I am not perceiving them.
Right. They are there.
So then I don't need the two things for them to exist. They exist, although I am not there.
They don't exist for you. Your belief that they are there exists. But they are not other than your thinking of them. No, I can't say that. Your thinking of them is their existence for you right now. That doesn't make them a self-existent thing. And for them to not be a self-existent thing does not make them disappear. If there's a bug in the soil is there that the flowers are in. It is really confusing because this school is not saying there's no flowers until you get there. This school, in fact, is saying there's something that has the
Flowerish.
potential to be flowers that will be those specific flowers for you when you get there. And if there's nobody perceiving anything in that grocery store, can you confirm or deny that there's anything inside that grocery store? Really, you
No,
can't, right?
but
You can't.
the probability, let's say, is
Right.
telling me, it's like the same with the key for the car. Like the probability of the key switching on the car is so high that I
Right.
believe is the key switching on the car. So it's the same.
Right.
Or it's like my daughter is in the other room and then I
Right.
start to go crazy, like then because I'm not seeing it, it's seeing her, she's not there. It's a bit like, I don't know, weird. Then I start to feel I'm weird thinking this thing.
You are weird and I love you very much.
If I tell this to my husband, he's going to cut our internet. So I
know,
don't join
don't-
these
yeah,
classes anymore.
Tell him that what you learned is that the reason you love him is because you see him, and so you love him, and so he's there. Okay, how do we apply this to life? Louisa just said it doesn't work to apply it to life because it means there's no flowers in the store until I get there. And it means my daughter's not in the other room until I go over there and see her. Is that what it really means? Is that what highest middle way says? Nothing is anything but my projection. Seems like it. And it's a good thing I'm always with myself. Or the minute I went in the other room, myself would disappear, just like my daughter does, right? You know how the scripture gets out of it? They say the flowers are in the store because Buddhas are omniscient. I know, it makes me laugh too, but they're serious.
Yeah, they are perceiving them. So there is someone perceiving them, so they exist for
Exactly.
them,
For
but not
them,
for us.
but not for us. All right, let's see here. If we have any emotion or thought which would cause us to do anything which is unkind, it's aimed at something that is a gotcha. It's aimed at something that we are blaming for it being the cause of our upset. Is anything the cause of our upset from it, in it? Well, if the pen's identity can't be in it, from it, how can my upset be in it, from it? And yet I blame the angry yelling boss for my hurt feelings. And my habit is that the way you get the angry yelling boss to stop being angry with you is you cry. So I burst into tears. And then I'm totally embarrassed because that's not what a professional woman does. Right? And we perpetuate this cycle of the habit. And then we turn around and we're so upset with ourselves that the next person that gets in our way, we yell at them. And we created the cycle again. So we're reacting towards gakchas. Any mental affliction, any upset is directed at something that we believe exists in it, from it, that doesn't exist in it from it, does that mean the angry, yelling boss does not exist at all? No, I'm having that experience. In the same way that the flowers not in them from them does not mean there's no flowers at all. Nothing is independent of our perceptions of them, and our perceptions of them is forced on us as results of the causes made by what we perceived ourselves thinking, saying, doing towards others. When we think that other person is bad from their own side, nasty from their own side, we're in self-existent thinking. We may say they're nasty because their wife kept them up late at night. The dogs were barking all night long. They had a traffic jam. I know there's causes for them being upset right now, but we're still holding the upset that we feel as coming from them. Self-existent thinking, meaning not my unique perception forced on me by my past deeds. So that isn't unique to highest middle way. Mind only has that conclusion, forced on me from my seeds of past behavior. Lower middle way, forced on me by seeds of my past behavior. Highest middle way, forced on me by seeds of my past behavior. The difference in understanding, the subtlety of difference, is the subtlety of, is there anything left in all of existence that's not under the influence of my seeds ripening? Because if there's anything not under the influence of my seeds ripening, there's something that I cannot change from a suffering world thing to a paradise world thing. And in order to reach those 4 bodies of the Buddha, all of our suffering existence gets transformed, all of it. So it comes from a worldview that shows us that, in fact, everything depends on our seeds ripening, not just parts of things. Right? Different parts. From mind only school, lower middle way. Highest middle way, no part. Which means then all parts depend on me, my seeds. Not meaning this little personality me, meaning this process of seeds planting, seeds ripening, being reality, being existence, the process happening constantly. It's an identity shift, a big identity shift that will come along. But if we try to go there too fast, we can't sustain it. Okay. So when we have even a little bit of clarity about where this unpleasant situation, boss yelling at me, is coming from, my automatic blaming the boss starts and gets stillborn. It won't go on to the old usual reaction, because it's like, seems like it's coming from him, but I know I'm wrong about that. I know it's my own seeds. No reason to blame them, get upset with them. No reason to really even get upset with me, except a little sadness. Just, so what do I do with that? How do I respond differently to break this cycle? We use our meditation time to plan it out, to practice it in our mind's eye. If we have this recurring theme, yelling boss, somebody criticizing us, whatever it is, get on your cushion, run your mind through that actual experience, freeze frame it, check it out. Decide on a new response, push the play button, do your different response. Imagine what happens. You know, maybe the other person gets even more upset. All right, rewind, we'll try something else. And just in your mind's eye, in your imagination, try out all these different scenarios. And then just doing that, you'll be in one of these scenarios and you'll find yourself trying out one of your options. And it may go the way you anticipated from your cushion time, it may go differently. But the very fact that it occurs you to do something different is a huge rejoiceable. And you go, wow, I tried something different. It didn't go so well, but that's okay, because the result is not related to what I just did. Okay. All right. The stick in the analogy then is the blank screen in our karma and emptiness understanding. Our seeds ripening make what the blank screen looks like. And how we respond to that thing plants new seeds for what future experience will be. So really, we're not talking about just learning to stay calm in situations that would upset us. That's the first step in being able to stay calm in a bad situation. We're able to choose a different response than our automatic one from upset. And that burns off a situation of perpetuating the upset and plant something new. We do it again and again and again. And we go beyond just being good crap copers, Geshe-la uses the term, to weeding out all those nasty experiences completely. And in that pattern, we find ourselves in the position of, man, there's that pattern again. But we don't find ourselves reacting in that way at all. And for that little, say, getting criticized, you're close to the nirvana of reacting badly to criticizing. Right? We can reach these little nirvanas. The end of all criticizing back when I get criticized. We'll reach that before, the end of all mental afflictions. But that's an extraordinary thing. For that automatic habit pattern to finally come to an end. It just takes little by little effort to not respond in the way that it feels like we should. And that's really all we have to go on. Because we could say, okay, if somebody's yelling, I don't dare yell back. But I was never a yeller anyway, right? My reaction to being yelled at wasn't to yell back. It was to crawl in a hole and cry. right? So I want to do something different than my natural reaction. And we don't really know exactly what to do. And we don't really know exactly what we did to cause the situation, but we know how unpleasant it is. And so we have some idea of what kind of things cause that unpleasantness in others. And by way of experiencing it ourselves, all we can do is determine, I'll do my best not to behave that way towards anybody else. But we really don't know what sets them off. You know, theoretically, you could smile at somebody and it could piss them off. And if your intention was to piss them off, then your smile was a negative thing, was an unkind deed. All right. We accumulate this positive change, upward change, just by trying to bring a little kindness to others in our world. Whether we think they deserve it or not doesn't matter. If they get helped by us, it's a ripening of their karma. If our effort to try plants seeds, plants our own new karma, that part of the way it ripens is seeing a world where others are trying to help me. If they try to help me and I get upset, I've planted seeds for helping someone else and they get upset. Does that mean you have to be happy with every way that somebody helps you? No, right? But we understand that if we don't like the way they're helping us, we don't get mad or nasty back to them. You know, thank you for sharing and go on your way. And we try a little bit harder, that the way we help others, as well intended as they are from our side, maybe we check with them. You know, would you like me to come clean your kitchen, mother-in-law? Right? Instead of just assuming she would like for me to do it. Okay. As long as we still think of things as having their natures in them from them, we'll struggle with this understanding of these ideas. So don't think of yourself as a failure if you're struggling. It means that you're recognizing how hard it is to overcome lifetimes of seeds stained with ignorance as the right way to think. Like, it'd be different if we could recognize, we all know that we're filled with a poison, and the poison is this green stuff floating around in our body. And so we're all out to find this yucky green stuff and get rid of it. But we don't know that. We believe that our ignorance is a good factor. It's kind of funny because the word isn't quite right. Our ignorance is a big mistake. And until we recognize we're making a mistake, it's the way we're supposed to be. And we are very effective believers in self-existent things as humans. And we're really, really good at perpetuating samsara. And we're so good at it, we don't even know that we're making a big mistake. And we're finally waking up to that. Oh, there's a reason Buddha called himself fully awakened. Okay. You have what you need to do your homework. they ask you to memorize the short description of what it is to exist deceptively, which is things exist just by appearing to an unimpaired state of mind. Just not meaning, the word just not meaning deprecatingly just, but meaning only, as in no other way than just. Okay. And then your meditation is to review the example of the magic show and the 3 different kinds of people that are there. And maybe use different examples as well, so that you can get a hold of these 3 different ideas of an self-existing thing, an existing thing that depends on our seeds, and what's there to receive those seeds ripening. Because next class, we're going to go on to proofs of emptiness. And we need to have this piece pretty clear for our proofs of emptiness to make much sense. Okay? All right. Class 7. So remember that person we wanted to be able to help? We learned a lot that we will use sooner or later to help them in that deep and ultimate way. And that's an extraordinary goodness. So please be happy with yourself. And think of this goodness like a beautiful glowing gemstone that you can hold in your hands. Recall your own precious holy guide. See how happy they are with you. Grow your gratitude to them, your reliance upon them. And ask them to please stay close, to continue to guide you and help you. And then offer them this gemstone of goodness. See them accept it and bless it. And they carry it with them right back into your heart. See them there, feel them there. That love, that compassion, that wisdom. It feels so good, we want to keep it forever, and so we know to share it. By the power of the goodness that we've just done, may all beings complete the collection of merit and wisdom, and thus gain the 2 ultimate bodies that merit and wisdom make. So use those 3 long exhales to share this goodness with that one person. To share it with everyone you love. To share it with every being you've ever seen or heard of or imagined. See them all filled with this loving kindness, this wisdom that just bursts forth from them into everyone in their world. And may it be so. All right. Thank you so much for working so hard, doing your papers. I appreciate that. I'm stopping the recording. Stop the recording. Are you sure? Yes. Okay, this is Monday. We're going into the week. Have a great week.
Thank you, Lama.
Okay, bye-bye. I love you.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.